Hello and welcome back. So in our previous videos, we spoke a little bit about our challenges getting onto the property market up here in Scotland as first-time buyers. And we mentioned a few ways on how we overcame this problem, especially with the whole offers over system. But in this video, I just want to go a little bit more into depth and give you my 5 top tips on how to get onto the property ladder, especially in Scotland, but also in the UK as a whole. And this is purely based on our experience and the struggles and challenges that we also faced. So when you're looking for a property, you'll probably head to an estate agent website or somewhere like Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, or some other similar website, and you'll do a search for properties within the area where you want to move to. Unlike the rest of the UK or south of the border down in England, where a lot of the properties will have a guide price, and usually that is the price you pay. Sometimes you can slide in under the guide price with a sneaky little offer. In Scotland, that doesn't work like that. Typically what you'll find in the search results on the website is you'll see the price, and then underneath it will say offers over. Now, properties in Scotland, 9 times out of 10 sell for way more than that offers over price, and the estate agents purposely put a lower price, lower than the actual home report value. I'm guessing they do it to generate a bit of interest and generate a bit of a buzz and create competition. Now, in my eyes, that's wrong, because if you see a price for property and you think that's within my budget, we can go for that, we can go and view it, and then you're constantly being outbid by other people who are prepared to pay far more for it, way more than the actual home report value in most cases, it's kind of wasting everybody's time. It's wasting the time of the estate agent and the time of the vendor, and it's wasting the time of the person who is going to view that property, who is unfamiliar with how the Scottish property market works. And that's exactly what happened to us. We were viewing properties thinking they were well within our budget, and then we realised we were constantly being outbid. There was other people offering far more. You know, so in some cases, they were offering 20% more than what the property is actually worth, or 20% more than what the home report value is for the property. So those struggles aside, here are my 5 top tips. Tip number 1 is the obvious one. You have to save for a deposit for your mortgage. Now, typically, the mortgage lender will want anywhere between 5 and 10% deposit would be expected. The more you can save for a deposit, the bigger the deposit you have, the more chance you have of getting a mortgage, and also the more chance you have of getting better interest rates for the mortgage, so lower interest rates. If you have a bigger deposit, that could potentially open up lower interest rates for your mortgage. However, obviously it's difficult to save up a deposit when you're paying rent each month, which is exactly what we were doing. So I've always rented properties. My entire adulthood I've rented properties. Then I moved up to Scotland around 16 years ago and rented properties for another 16 years. And it really does make me cry to think of the amount of money I've spent renting properties over that time. But you can't think about it. You just need to draw a line under it and move on. So renting a property, you still need somewhere to live. So unless you're fortunate enough, lucky enough or unlucky enough to be able to still live with the parents or something like that, you're probably going to be renting a place. So paying that rent and trying to save for a mortgage, it's difficult. It's really difficult, I'll be absolutely honest. And quite often, the amount you pay in rent for a property each month, you could probably get a mortgage with cheaper monthly payments than your rent, which is exactly what we found out. The mortgage for this place is cheaper than the rent we were paying for the rented accommodation, which was only 2 bedrooms as well, where this is 3 bedrooms. So my advice when it comes to saving for a deposit would be cutbacks. Just stop spending money on stuff that you don't need. Fortunately for us, when we were in the midst of saving for a deposit to buy a house, COVID happened. I say fortunately, it's unfortunate, but every cloud silver lining, I guess, because what happened is lockdowns were introduced, which meant everywhere was closed. You couldn't go on holiday, you couldn't go to restaurants, you couldn't go to bars or go clubbing or anything like that. So all of this money that you would normally be spending, going out, enjoying coffees, enjoying food, it's just sitting there. So all of that we ploughed into really trying to bump up our deposit that we were saving for. And it worked. It's actually amazing how much money you waste on stuff. I work in Glasgow and I would be in the office 5 days a week pre-COVID. And 5 days a week, I would probably go and grab lunch out somewhere, whether that be eating out with colleagues or just grabbing a sandwich and something, a drink or whatever from the supermarket. You could be spending, even just grabbing something to take away, you could be spending anywhere between £5 and £15 a day, depending on what it is you're eating for your lunch. If you're eating out with colleagues, it's costing a fortune. I'd have a coffee every morning, at least one coffee. I'd go down, I'd order a latte. What's that, about £3 or something like that? Commuting to work, I was spending a fortune, either getting buses or trains or spending a fortune on fuel to drive to work, parking charges and all of the rest of it. So it's actually amazing how much stuff you spend money on without even realising it. All adds up. These £3 for coffees here and there. Getting haircuts. We couldn't get haircuts. Nobody could get haircuts for the entire lockdown. Barbershops were closed, hairdressers were closed. It was a case of ordering a buzzer from Amazon, and me and Adam will just try and do each other's haircuts. But it saved us an absolute fortune. I would pay about £30 for a haircut once a month. I'd be in Glasgow and I'd go out to a barber shop on my lunch break and pay about £30. That's just Glasgow prices. So like I said, during lockdown, we were spending far less money, which meant that we were able to plough that into our savings for the deposits. There doesn't need to be another lockdown to do that. Just be very savvy with your spending. When you're online looking at things and you're tempted to buy things, do you really need another pair of shoes? Do you really need another jacket? How many jackets do you have in your wardrobe? How many pairs of shoes do you have? Can you get by without spending money on another pair of shoes or another jacket? Can you make packed lunches to take to work for your lunch instead of eating out every day? Can you walk instead of getting the bus? If not, what works out cheaper? Driving to work or taking public transport? The prices of public transport these days, it's quite likely driving to work may work out cheaper. Who knows? But you see my point. Just be careful of what you're spending. If lockdowns taught me anything, it's that I was spending way too much money on stuff. Nights out, eating out at restaurants. I'm not saying don't have fun. Yes, have fun. But while you're saving for a deposit for your house, can you have a date night at home and cook a nice meal rather than going out and spending at least £100 or whatever on a fancy meal in a fancy restaurant? It soon adds up. It really does. It soon adds up. And the sooner you can save the money for that deposit, the sooner you can get out of this rented accommodation endless cycle, and hopefully get your foot on the first rung of the property ladder. But yeah, tip number one, deposit. just think, I need the deposit to get out of this rented accommodation cycle. How can I save for the deposit? Can I go a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it's going to take without going on holiday? Can I just go for cheaper breaks rather than spending copious amounts of money flying abroad? Or can I get cheaper deals? Can I, instead of staying in a 5-star luxury resort, can I just go somewhere that's self-catering? We all need a break. Like I said, I'm not saying don't have fun. Okay, so tip number 2. Just while we're on the subject of deposits, are there any government schemes you can take advantage of? I'm talking about schemes such as Help to Buy for first-time buyers, or first-time buyer ISAs to save your deposit in rather than a regular bank account, and things like that. There may be things on. It all depends on. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's anything. Certainly not in Scotland at the time of recording this video. But these kind of government schemes, they do crop up every now and then. They're usually quite a small window to take advantage of said schemes. But yeah, it may be worth looking into it. So for example, when Adam and I were saving for a deposit in the house, we'd started saving in a regular bank account, and then we realised the government scheme at the time in Scotland was a first-time buyer ISA, which meant that if you saved your money in the ISA account, if you opened a first-time buyer ISA account and saved your money in there, when you're ready to cash in basically, and you're ready to take that money that you've saved and put that as a deposit towards the mortgage, the government will basically give you free money. I can't remember exactly what it was at the time when we had the first-time buyer ISA account, but I do know that we got, I think it was approximately £5,000 or something like that. It was, we're not talking tens of thousands of pounds, but hey, £5,000 and it's free money. And first-time buyers need all the help that they can possibly get in this day and age. The way it works is the government will give you a percentage of the money you've saved at the time of cashing it in for your deposit for the mortgage. But there are limitations. You can't just chuck £40,000 in and have the government give you a percentage of that. No, it doesn't work like that. I think initially when you first open the account, the maximum you can put in for your first kind of deposit, I think it was around £1,500 back then. Could be wrong, but that figure seems about right. And then after that, the maximum per month that you can deposit into the account is £200. So by doing it that way, yeah, it's going to take quite a while. It depends on how much you're planning on putting aside each month, but the maximum is £200. My advice is throw £200 at it. Stop going out, like I said in the previous tip one about stop spending money on stuff, and put the maximum amount each month into your first time buyer ISA account that you possibly can. Because obviously the more you're saving it, the more kind of free money you're gonna get. So that was the deal that was on at the time when we were buying. There was another deal that came in very briefly. I can't remember what it was. It was a Help to Buy scheme or something like that. I'm not quite sure of the ins and outs of it, but it was a very short window. It was only open for, basically the Scottish government had put money aside to help first-time buyers get onto the property ladder. The window was only open for around a week, and then it was closed because the budget had gone like that because so many people had applied for it. I'll be honest, there were a few loopholes in that particular scheme which people were taking advantage of, which is such a shame. I did get the impression that not everybody taking advantage of it were genuine first-time buyers. Perhaps their partner already owned a house So technically they were first-time buyers, but they moved in with a partner who already owns the house, and then anyway, there were definitely a few kind of loopholes, which I think some people were taking advantage of that, and they shouldn't have been. Anyway, so my point is, look out for any government schemes. There may not be anything at the time, and if not, just save in a different savings account. But that is my second tip anyway. Okay, so my third tip to help you get onto the property market as a first-time buyer is location. Consider widening the radius in which you're searching for a property. And what I mean by that is, when I first started looking for a property, I work in Glasgow, so I was looking for properties to start with within the city of Glasgow, which is really expensive, so there was no way that was ever going to happen as a first-time buyer without the help of Bank of Mummy and Daddy. I don't have that luxury, so that was never going to happen. I then started looking at properties within a fairly smallish radius of the city centre, so commuter towns such as Paisley, for example. It's literally 20-minute train journey into the city centre. That was still expensive for the type of property that I was wanting. I could probably have got a property in Paisley, but I wouldn't have got as much for my money as what I would if I was prepared to look a little bit further away from the big cities and the big towns. I certainly wouldn't have got as much for my money had I have moved into the city centre. I don't even know if I would have got a one-bedroom flat in the city centre for the same price as a 3-bedroom house further away from the city. So yeah, my advice would be, do you really need to live in the city or in the town or right close to the cities or the towns? You may like to be close to your work because it's less of a commute. You may like the hustle and the bustle of a town or city life and the nightlife and everything else that comes with it. But properties in major towns and cities will always be more expensive. Are you prepared, if you work in a town or a city, are you prepared to live or consider living further away and get far much more for your money? A bigger property, a bigger garden, less noise. But the caveat to that, of course, is you will have a slightly longer commute back into the city or the town if that is where you work. But yeah, consider if you're struggling to get onto the property market, onto the property ladder rather, and you're a first-time buyer, consider widening the radius that you're searching for properties. We usually will search for properties as close to work as possible, so we don't have that commute. But so does everybody else, which pushes the prices up. Okay, so tip number 4, it's not so much of a tip, it's more of something to be aware of, because it could catch you out, and it definitely caught us out. Be aware of your budget and research everything that you will need to pay for. Research all of the costings when you're buying a property. And what I mean by that is, it's not just a case of saving the deposit for your mortgage and then buying the property, getting the mortgage and buying it. It's other things that you may easily overlook. Removal costs. Removal costs, they are not cheap, especially if you're moving further away from where you currently reside. Can you reduce those removal costs by hiring a van like we did? We hired a big wagon Fortunately, Adam has his HGV license, but it doesn't have to be a HGV. Can you just hire a big van and drive it, or do you know somebody who would be able to drive the van for you and help you move your stuff? How much stuff do you have? If you're currently living at mum and dad's or in a rented property rather, does the furniture stay at the rented property or is it come with you? I don't know, but just be aware of the removal costs. Other costs that definitely caught us out by surprise are solicitors' fees. Yep, solicitors' fees. Solicitors aren't cheap, they're expensive. So research and look into it and find out how much your solicitors are going to charge, because you'll need to pay for that. And then there are things such as if you buy a new build property, such as this one. As I mentioned in my previous video, some new build properties, some housing developers, such as Persimmon Homes, for example, the default property standard doesn't come with much in it. Yes, you have a kitchen and a bathroom and things like that, but they're all quite basic, unless you upgrade. So there is an option to upgrade. Persimmon call it the finishing touches. And at the time of purchasing the plot, they will show you lots of wonderful brochures and samples of flooring and kitchen cupboard doors and things like that you can upgrade to. If you don't upgrade, you'll end up with a basic white kitchen, a basic shower in the ensuite, no flooring, as in no carpets or wood LVT or laminate or nothing like that. You don't even get turf in the garden. So when we moved in October, the back garden was just a mud bath, which was horrendous for Benji. He wasn't allowed out there. So the finishing touches, it is likely that when you move into your property, or when you buy your plot rather, you'll possibly want to spend a little bit of money to upgrade to some of the finishing touches. You might not necessarily purchase the flooring throughout from the developer, because that can be quite costly. You can perhaps do that yourself and go and shop around for carpets and flooring and whatever. But things like upgrading your kitchen, it makes sense to upgrade at the time of your house being built, because paying a little bit extra. So I think we paid around an extra £5,000 to upgrade the kitchen for all the fancy stuff. That was a damn sight cheaper than us sticking with a basic white kitchen and then having to rip it out and spend money on a brand new kitchen from scratch. Things like putting a rain shower in the ensuite and the bathroom, and so all of these little things that they soon add up. So that's another potential hidden cost that you may not have considered. Now, when we first bought this new build, we were adamant we weren't going to squander money on any of the finishing touches until we seen how basic the stuff would be that comes with the house by default. And it just made complete sense to upgrade some of the things at the time. As you know, we opted for a new build property purely because of the fixed price. So initially we were looking at older properties. We wanted something with a little bit more character. Most older properties, most existing properties that other people have lived in are part of the offers over system. So as I said, the price you see isn't the price you'd get it for. You're going to have to pay way more than that to get that property. And the problem there is, whatever you offer to secure that property over the home report value, the bank won't lend you that. So if you see a property and it says offers over £200,000, and you think, great, I really, really, really like this property, this is my dream home, I'm going to put an offer in for £220,000. The home report value for the property may be 210. So that extra 10 grand that you've offered over the home report, you have to pay for yourself out of your own pocket. The bank won't lend you that. that really caught us out when we were looking and we put an offer in for a property. It was accepted, and we realised that the bank wouldn't lend us that. We didn't know. We were first-time buyers. We didn't know how all of this stuff worked. So we were super embarrassed, and we had to go back and withdraw our offer with our tail between our legs. So yeah. So instead we opted for a new build property because it was fixed price. The price you see is the price you get it for, and that's what the mortgage lender will lend you minus your deposit. If you are looking at existing properties and you don't want a new build, because new builds can be a bit more expensive, one of the tips I can give you to help with your search is a plugin that can be installed on Chrome, and it basically shows you the price history for properties listed in Rightmove. So what that does is it shows you any changes to the price of that property for the length of time that has been listed on Rightmove. It'll show you if the price has been reduced, which is great, because if it's been reduced, that suggests that the property is the vendor struggling to sell the property, so you may be able to get a good deal and put in a lower offer. It'll also show you if the sneaky buggers have increased the price, and the reason some estate agents will encourage people to do this, if the property's struggling to sell, it's been on for a few weeks, they'll persuade the vendor to up the price of it. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But there's a method behind that madness. By upping the price, then the very next week, dropping the price again, that tricks the algorithms somewhat within Rightmove, and that property remains closer to the top of the search results, because the longer a property has been listed on websites such as Rightmove, the further down the search results it goes, to the point where not many people see it. So by changing the price of a property, by putting it up or putting it down, it kind of triggers the search results to show that property further up the search results. Does that make sense? But this plugin in Chrome can also work to your advantage, because, as I said, it will show you any price changes, and obviously the ones you want to be looking for are the price reductions, because that suggests it's been on the property for a while, that it's struggling to sell it, and you may be able to get it cheaper. The other tip when searching for properties is don't necessarily go straight in and filter the search results to show the newest listed properties. Because the problem with that is everybody's doing that. People who are looking for properties, they are on Rightmove every day or every week or whatever, and as soon as a new property is listed, bang, they are on it. There is so much competition for those newly listed properties, which means if you are interested in the property and you're putting in an offer, or you're considering putting in an offer, you're probably going to have to offer way over the home report value to compete with the other potential buyers. So instead, do what we did when we bought the cottage that we'll hopefully be moving to in the near future. Filter the search results to show the oldest listed properties. They've probably been on the market for quite a while, and there's probably a reason for that. Perhaps there's some repairs need doing, I don't know. And they've gone further and further and further down the search results in the listings on sites such as Rightmove, which means fewer people see that property, which means that there's going to be far less interest. And if you do find the property that you like, using that plugin also in Chrome may show you if it's been reduced. It'll show you the price history, and then you can swoop in and put a sneaky little offer in, and you may just get it at home report value, which is rare up here in Scotland. As I said, most properties sell for way above the home report value. Or you may be lucky and even secure the property at a price under the home report value, which is incredibly rare. So it's worth trying. There may not be anything that you'll like. By filtering and looking at the older properties and the ones that have been reduced, it's potential there will be you can expect to see reasons why they've been on the market for so long and why they may have been reduced. And that will probably become clearer once you ask the estate agent who's dealing with that property for a copy of the home report. You'll have different categories of repairs required from 1 to 3, 3 being the most urgent repairs. So typically when a property hasn't sold very well, it may be because it's too near a main road, a busy road. It might require a lot of extensive repairs, which will put a lot of people off. Or it may just be a case of the property lacks curb appeal somewhat. It could just need a fresh lick of paint on the outside, put some pots with plants in outside to kind of spruce it up a bit. That may be all it needs. But the pictures the estate agents have taken might make it look a little bit ugly, but it might have potential. You could find, potentially, that little diamond in the rough, a potential little hidden gem. Hopefully these tips will help you to get onto the property ladder. I really, really wish I came across a video like this to help us out when we were first starting to look at properties as first-time buyers, to help us understand and navigate our way through all of this stuff, especially the offers over system. If somebody could clearly have explained to me how the offers over system works, some of the little tips and tricks on how you can get around it, how much you would need to save for your deposit, hidden costs such as solicitors' fees and all of this other stuff. If somebody could have explained that to myself and Adam from the offset, it would have saved us so much hassle. So there you go, that's my 5 tips to hopefully help you get yourself on the first rung of that property ladder. I really hope you found this video useful. As I said, I wish I'd have come across a video like this when we were first looking for a property. And if you did find the video useful, please like it. Drop a little comment and let me know that you found it useful, and remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future updates. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.